Final Word Daily, Final Word Champions Trophy Daily, brought to you by McInnes Whiskey. I'm Cameron Ponsonby. I'm joined in Pindi by Andrew Fidel Fernando.
In Lahore. Well, I mean, even I'm struggling to feel to stay in to keep track, because I was in Pindi yesterday, last night, drove through fog and rain to get to Lahore, and now I'm here.
I'm actually going to blame you for my mistake there, because we were just chatting and you were like, yeah, so I've driven from Pindi. And then I had Pindi in my brain. When I knew it was on Lahore because it's been on my TV the whole day. Anyway, Australia are through to the semi-finals of the Champions Trophy. Afghanistan are all but out. But to sum up today's rain-curtailed fixture in 30 seconds is Fidel.
Yeah, so Australia started strongly. They got Ramanullah Gurbaz out, and it wasn't that long until they got the hero of Wednesday night's match, Ibrahim Zadran, out. It looked a little bit hairy for Afghanistan, but they recovered nicely through Sahidullah Atal, who hit 85, and through Azmatullah Omarzai, who was fantastic through the back end of that innings, making a 67 off 63. Managed to, despite a little bit of a middle overs collapse, I think they lost about between 159 runs and 199 runs. I don't know what the maths is there. They lost about 4 wickets. Looked like they would struggle to get to 250 at that stage, but Azmatullah's innings took them over to 273. And then Australia started incredibly strongly. Matt Short was a little bit injured, wasn't moving that well, got dropped a couple of times. Afghanistan really needed those early wickets, didn't get them, partly because of their own fielding, and then Travis Head took over, 109 for 1 in 12.5 overs before the rains came down. They were torrential rains, washed out the rest of the play, pools on the outfield, the whole thing. I watched a lot of rain on this trip to Pakistan.
You've watched loads of rain. It's surprised me. Can I just have a quick survey of?
You know what? You know what it is. I'm being blamed by Cricinfo and other people that I work for being the rain bringer. Everywhere I go, the rain seems to follow me.
Congratulations.
But from a Sri Lankan perspective, we weren't invited to this competition. It's right that one of us come and sabotage it. So that is exactly what I'm doing.
I've always liked about you, Fidel. You're a thinker. You're kind of working out outside the box. How can I ruin this competition where Sri Lanka aren't here? But the long and short of it is basically, it's not too much of a damp squib in that we've had another game abandoned, which we didn't know where the result was going to be. It was very likely Australia were going to continue on their path to victory in this match. So I don't feel too kind of robbed of a result. I suppose Afghanistan might argue with me there. But the end result is this. For Afghanistan to make it through, they'll need England to beat South Africa by 1 million, which is a lot. And the exact calculation, as provided by Cricinfo, if they were to South Africa, I don't know why I can't speak, which is always a problem. South Africa need to lose to England by at least 207 runs, chasing 301 if Afghanistan are to move up to second place. Basically, Fidel, can you confirm they're out? For all intents and purposes.
I mean, we can't. But yeah, it would be England would have to pull off some kind of miraculous drubbing of South Africa, and based on England's form this tournament, I'm not really backing them to do that for Afghanistan to be in. So I think we can kind of fairly safely. I think we can say Australia have got 1 foot and most of the other foot in that semi-final. Or South Africa have got 1 foot, most of the other foot in that semi-final, and Afghanistan, probably will be thinking they'll be lucky to be there.
2 notes for the Afghanistan batters. 1, Sahidullah Atal, 23 years old, got 85, is very new in his international career, looks very organised, looks a very kind of, what's the word, not complacent, very composed player. He's had a deal with MI Cape Town earlier this year in kind of January. And then the other person I want to talk about, I kind of feel a little bit like when I listened to the Red Hot Chili Peppers for like the first time a couple of years ago, just one summer, and I was like, these guys have got some tunes, and everyone was like, yeah, we know. And I think I'm only now appreciating Azmatullah Omarzai for the player he is. He is fantastic. He contributed again, kind of not quite single-handedly, but resurrecting the innings, taking Afghanistan up to a total. He scored 1, 4 and 5 sixes in his total of 67. His average with the bat in ODI cricket is close to 50. He got his first 5-wicket haul against England in the previous match. he was the ODI Cricketer of the Year last year, so I appreciate I'm late to the party, but to continue giving him his flowers, as the phrase goes. But Fidel, I actually want to ask you about Australia, and I want to ask you about the Australian seam attack. So there was a lot made of the absentee of the kind of the big three, kind of Hazelwood, Cummins, and Mitchell Starc not being there. We've had Ben Dwarshuis, Spencer Johnson, Nathan Ellis across 2 innings. How are they looking in terms of the long-term future of the Aussie seam stock, which when those big three eventually retire either all at once or one by one, that'll be a big shift in kind of the cricketing landscape. How are they shaping up?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of quality there. You can see from, these are very kind of well-heeled limited overs bowlers. They've got the variations. They've got that hustle. And today we saw, more iterations that Afghanistan were never allowed to get too far away. And the fact that they've got someone as good as Zampa there as well, controlling portions of the innings, he's very much the kind of senior figure in this particular attack. Between the four of them, they've got a lot going for them. And the thing we know about Australian cricket is, they're missing the big three, but the next level down is never that far away. That has been the case for Australian cricket for decades now. And they can lose a few players. We saw with Pakistan in the other games, they lose a few players, and the next level coming up is not quite at, there's between Saim Ayub and Khushil Shah, there's a huge difference. Whereas with Australia, that's just not the case in almost any position. They can have Stoinis retire, they can have other stuff happen, and it's okay. Australian cricket will move on. So it's very much the case with these seamers. I think they had, a fairly middling day. Afghanistan were obviously batting well, but they found ways to keep striking, and they weren't bowling magic balls. They were just doing, very high percentage limited overs bowling. And that allowed them to restrict. I think probably to test Australia, Afghanistan would have had to get something close to 290 or 300. And so 272 was probably a good result. And I think Steve Smith, after the end of the match, said that.
I think Spencer Johnson is one really, really to kind of keep an eye on it. If he can stay fit, he's only played, I think, 5 or 6 first-class matches. But he had this breakthrough season in the Big Bash, I want to say in 2022, and everyone went, wow, who's this young quick, like where's he been? And he was 26 and he just hadn't played any cricket because he'd had this kind of chronic, I think it was a foot injury. I'm trying, as I'm doing this, I'm trying to find the interview I did with him, and he was working as a groundsman. He was kind of just a jobbing working professional. He hadn't played any professional cricket really, and he went to a doctor in Sydney to basically, as a last chance saloon, have this surgery to try and fix him. And the surgeon was like, never done this before. I have no idea if this is going to work, but we'll give it a whirl. And Spencer Johnson's there like, bloody hell, like, here we go. And it did work. He's got back out on the park, and his acceleration from basically playing grade cricket, where I think he moved himself from Adelaide to Brisbane to kind of give himself a new chance. The acceleration was so quick because there's just nothing to not like about it. If you bowl 90 miles an hour left-handed from 6'5", what's not to like? I think Australia remain very excited about him, both in a white and red ball capacity. It's just a matter of if he can stay fit. I think he's probably the one all-round package compared to Dwarshuis and Ellis, who are probably more, not necessarily pigeonholed as white ball bowlers, but Dwarshuis definitely doesn't play massive amounts for New South Wales, and Nathan Ellis is kind of the box of tricks. With the bat, Travis Head. Like, I know I said before we came on air, I don't feel that robbed about Australia going through here because I think they're going to win anyway. And I saw Michael Carberry, and I was being a bit rude. I was like, I saw Carberry say that this match was not on a knife's edge. No, it wasn't. Aussies have won. Like, was there an opportunity for Afghanistan to get back into this match? Or was Travis Head just Travis Head, finishing on 59 off 40, and jobs are good?
Yeah, look, if they had caught those early chances, Faruqi had one dropped by Rashid Khan, and then Azmatullah had one dropped at the boundary. And so if it was pretty shoddy fielding performance to start up, in the first 10 overs from Afghanistan. If they had nailed that, they would have had Australia under pretty significant pressure. And we know from the England match that, Afghanistan do have the capacity once they have a team kind of on the back foot to impose themselves. They do have the quality in that bowling attack. Yeah, maybe Rashid Khan's not a one-day bowler in the way that he's a T20 bowler, but he's still able to do a serious job, particularly when batters are looking to go after him. So, if they could have put the squeeze on a little bit through Noor Ahmed, there was a way for Afghanistan to get into this match for sure. And there still was, 109, you still got 160 odd to chase. So I wouldn't say that it was a foregone conclusion. I will say Australia were almost certainly, had the game by the collar. I don't know. It's interesting. So with you and Norcross, I've been we've been hanging out on the final word with Norcross. He thinks that India and New Zealand look really unbeatable. I think it's a fun little tournament where we don't really know how good India is. We kind of know how good New Zealand is. And with Australia, because they're kind of playing this unusual second string attack, there could also be a team that exposes the inexperience there. They lost 2-0 to Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka are improving one-day team at the moment, but they lost 2-0 to them at home in the lead up to this. So it's not as if Australia are coming in with massive amounts of form. In terms of Travis Head, I think if I was India, I would be a little bit worried now. There's no confirmation about whether India will play Australia in that Dubai semi. But if they do, we've seen what Travis Head does at the back end of tournaments. He tends to be his most monstrous self in the big matches, and he's had like a few failures pile up. If you look through that Sri Lanka series, the first two games in this Champions Trophy, and look a little bit way back, he hasn't had a big score for a while. Today, he looked like he was getting all the parts of his game into play, and he's done it twice before to India. Yeah, he's done it twice before to India. So it's nicely set up going into that. India definitely look the most comfortable of the teams, but there are, I suspect, some gaps there that can be exploited too.
I think everyone resonates with Travis Head because he's kind of living the life of the international cricketer everyone.
You know what? I think he is probably one of the most beloved cricketers on the planet at the moment, because I've met kids here who are massive Travis Head fans, Pakistanis, people who have traveled, 50, 100 kilometers to Australia match to watch Travis Head, and almost all of the Australia support in the stands today, which wasn't much. They were absolutely overwhelmed by Afghans coming in to support their team. But if there was some Australia support, it tended to be Travis Head focused support. Travis Head was their way into the Australia team. So I think he's really made a splash around the world. And when you travel to a place like Pakistan, you kind of realize, this guy's really made an impact, not just in Australia, but in parts of the cricketing world that, where he hasn't had a lot of exposure as well.
That's really interesting. I'm going to kind of think out loud here, potentially say something stupid, but because I think I feel like part of Travis Head's kind of allure, or like, is the larrikin kind of like, it feels very westernized in the world. It's like he drinks beers and he whacks sixes. And I kind of like that. There's also just his batting, which is also translated across the world, where it's kind of like he is actually just an incredibly exciting player. He does do a thing that annoys me though, where he'll talk about how good he'll be, like, oh god, this bowler's so good, and then the clips are just him like hitting him for six. He does it with Jofra Archer all the time. I want to ask you a little bit. Breaking news today, so we are going to touch on it, even though it wasn't involved in this match per se. Jos Buttler has stepped down as kind of England white ball captain. He'll finish after the South Africa match. Are you shocked or surprised?
I'm not. I would have been shocked if he had retired.
Yeah.
I guess I'm not massively surprised. It's we've seen he's a World Cup winning captain. First of all, let's at the moment of his exit, let's remember that he did deliver England that 2022 World Cup. But perhaps it's time, between the 23 World Cup, last year's T20 World Cup, and now the Champions Trophy. That's 3 tournaments in a row, in which England haven't really made much of an impact. So I think as a captain, or as a team, perhaps that's a very good sign that you're in need of some fresh ideas, some fresh leadership. He's very much from that Owen Morgan era. Maybe it's time for someone with some other ideas to come in and take charge.
And the kind of shortlist is pretty short. It kind of feels like we're all going to talk about who it's going to be, and then it's just going to be Harry Brook. Like, is there another route they could go?
The short list. You're not implying Ben Duckett, are you?
I want
I also don't mind him. I think I understand why he rubs people up the wrong way, but he doesn't rub me up the wrong way. Harry Brook, I think, would be the obvious choice, right? Like, unless you have like Adil Rashid doing some kind of caretaker thing for a little while until Brook gets another.
I literally was thinking that as I was kind of walking up the stairs to record this. I was kind of going, if the idea is too soon for Brook, and we don't want to to Salt or Livingston, who've both done it in the last 6 months, is that mental? I was kind of surprised that Rashid's name doesn't come up in these conversations.
Yeah, I mean, I think is it kind of part of the when was the last time England had a spin bowling captain? I can't think of a single one. That's really
James Treadwell. That one.
Did he lead like a under 19? Yeah, James. No, he did. Are you serious? James Treadwell.
James Treadwell in a match.
Would have been the quietest captain. Not a man of very few words, at least in press conferences. James Treadwell. That's the main thing I remember apart from bowling, of course. But they haven't had a long-term captain that's a spin bowler that I can think of. There must have been one sometime, but nothing. It's not often that you have one. I think fast bowling captains have become more common now with Cummins and Bumrah doing it a little bit, and of course Pakistan have had fast bowling captains, but spin bowling captains so rare.
I was really hoping you were going to carry on talking about 30 seconds there, because I've got James Treadwell up on Cricket Info live. Oh god, it's not looking good for me. Is not captain in all 45 of his ODIs.
He did not seem. He did not.
I'm sure he did. I've had this. This is a pub quiz answer. He's captain in one T20 2013. Get in. Yeah.
Who was that? Who was that against?
It was against New Zealand.
Okay. Okay.
Hang on. New Zealand in 2013 at the Oval, no results. The match was abandoned after 2 balls. England 3-1.
Okay.
So he didn't get a chance. He didn't get a chance to stress his influence on the team. I wish I'd said that properly. Oh well. Right. Well, what a fun segue that was. Anyway, I reckon we should go for a break on that high note. We're going to go hear a little bit from our friends at CBUS Super. Right, we're back. This is the Hall of Fame, brought to you by McInnes Whiskey. Now, McInnes Whiskey specialise in sourcing branded single malt Scotch whiskey casks for investment purposes. They're like classic cars, as you well know by now, Fidel. And because they're like classic cars, they're what's known as a wasting asset, which means you get to... What does it mean? It basically means that you get to keep their capital gains tax-free. You keep all the profits. You don't have to pay tax on it. I quite like tax, actually. I think it's a good thing for the social world. But in this instance, we're winning. We're getting profits. McInnes Whiskey, Scotch whiskey, top of the range. It's a long-term investment. It's not a quick buck. You get it with your friends. You invest together. You see yourself over years see this money go up and up and up in your bank. You sell it later. You can either crack it open or have a drink together. It's fantastic. And because you're with us, you get 20% off if you cite ICC Whiskey Cricket 20 in an email to them. They are available at sales@mckinneswhiskey.com. This isn't a thing that you do at checkout. If we're talking highbrow here, you're getting high quality customer service. You need to get in contact with them first. Quote ICC Whiskey Cricket 20 and you'll be getting 20% off. Cast prices start at £3,625. Right. Hall of Fame. I am going to go first and get one out. Actually, you know what? You go first. I know there's one that we should definitely talk about. So you go first. And if you don't say it, I'll say it.
The Smith withdrawing the appeal
Yes.
Was that the one you were going for? Yeah. Okay. We do have to cover that one. Yeah, it was interesting. I think part of it. I mean, Josh Inglis was down to. So what happened? Just in case people haven't watched, end of the 47th over. Azmat hits. I think it was through mid wicket, gets a single to keep the strike for the next over. They're 8 down at this point. The man at the other end is Noor Ahmed, who completes the run at the non-strikers, puts his bat down, and then starts wandering off before the umpire has called over, and Josh Inglis sweeps the bails off. And technically, that should be out. That's run out as long as the rules say that. I'm a firm believer that there should be no moralizing. You straight out of your crease, you should know the rules of your game, and a wicketkeeper whip the bails off. That's the end of the story. But of course, there is lots of moralizing. There is kinds of spirit of cricket or the right way to play beliefs around the world, and Smith doesn't want to fall afoul of them, or perhaps personally believes it himself, or maybe doesn't want to get involved in another captaincy controversy. He had a very famous one. Doesn't want to go, dip his hand into that bucket again. So I understand. So Smith was very quick about it. By the way, he didn't mess around. He's like, no, we're not. We're withdrawing that appeal. Noor Ahmed never even started walking the crease. It never really went upstairs because Smith was quite quick about it. So it is what it is. I don't have strong feelings about it. I think that it's a weird thing in cricket for that you make a dismissal for someone who's not trying to take an advantage. They're just being a little bit dopey. I'm not sure being dopey is enough to warrant your wicket being taken, but that's what the rules say, and I'm happy with them as they are. I don't have strong feelings on it. Weirdly, it's something that inspires very strong feelings.
Wait, I agree with you. Which neither of us, both of us, are quite apathetic about this, which is good for a show-based entertainment purposes. I think basically, look, I thought the same with this with the Tom Curran one. It's a bit weird. It's just everyone just carry on with their lives and let's not ever think about it. Kind of common sense reigns. However, I do think it is very relevant that they're 8 down with a sub-ish par total, and as you say, like, it's not like a must win situation where Steve Smith, the decision is much easier for him. If it's the final, the semi-final, and it's Rohit Sharma, I guarantee you that appeal gets upheld. And in that case, weirdly, then I'm like, yeah, got to win, like high stakes.
Yeah. I think we're terrible podcast partners because we're completely agreeing with each other and making like really reasonable points. And like the YouTube algorithm is not going to like this one.
Not gonna lie, I think James Treadwell being captain, that's the highlight of the show and the year personally. Right, the only other one I was going to mention is the massive foam sponges they were using to mop up the outfield, which I really enjoyed. They just picture in your mind a massive sponge, and that they were using that to wipe up standing water, and you cannot go wrong. That is exactly what was going on. But that is it for today. It's brought to you by McInnes Whiskey. I've been Cameron. Fidel's been Fidel. And we'll be back tomorrow for England versus South Africa and Jos Buttler's final white ball match as captain. We'll see you and speak to you again then.